Hello everyone and welcome to this Player vs Ark in-depth breeding guide. Now some other servers will have different mods and settings. This is just for these amazing Player vs Ark PvP servers, which you can join through Discord with the link below. And if you do like this video, find it informative or helpful, please hit the like button, share it, and subscribe for more content to come. Now without further ado, we have a lot to go over, so let's go straight into it. Step 1. Dino selection and setup. Dino selection is one of the most important things to get out of the way when you're first starting. Think about what you want to do on the Ark and what dinos is best for that. I usually breed for 4 reasons: farming, raiding, base defense, and of course boss fights. Now, being more experienced with breeding, I do mass breeding where I breed around 6 dinos at a time. When you're first starting out, I recommend starting with 1 dino until you get the hang of it. The dinos that I selected this season to start out with were Theres, Stegos, Turtles, Zombie Lightning Wyverns, Tech Rexes, and Magmasaurs. To properly set up the breeding area, what you want to get is walls, ceilings, an awesome spyglass, 4 AC units, a soul terminal, soul balls, soul gun, a hatchery, a nanny, a tech generator to power all of it, a bunch of elements for each mutator, and at least 10 mutators. Now on this server, it allows 5 mutations per breeding round. So what you'll use the 10 mutators for, 5 of them will be for the mutation pulse, 2 of them will be for the growth pulse, and 3 are changed depending on certain dinos' needs, such as Griffins, which needs a gender assignment pulse and an allow breeding pulse, because, Ark creators decided they didn't want us to breed all the dinos in the game, like Griffins, Golems, Reapers, but hey, we found a way around it. Once you have your dinos and all the supplies that you need to start breeding, what you will want to do is breed your initial dinos with no mutator until you have about 30 females. You want your females to have as little mutations as possible. Now if you're breeding Griffins or Golems or any other dino that require a gender assignment or allow breeding pulse, you will want to do that pulse when they are still babies, then soul ball them to make that effect permanent on the dino. When you have your female babies ready, it's time to build the pens for them to grow up in. Turn on the range of each of the furthest mutators, creating the mutation pulse, and make sure that 3 additional mutators are outside of the range of the breeding area, so your breeders don't get accidentally gender swapped or some other pulse that it does not need. Then bring one of each of the adult dinos you are planning to breed and size out a box around them, creating pens that your females will reside in. After all the pens are made, it's time to throw all the female babies into their designated pens and hit the growth pulse. This will make them grow together in a tight box, allowing you to put the male breeder on top of the pen for maximum baby production. Step 2. Learning the soul terminal and how to look for stat mutations. The soul terminal is a very helpful tool when it comes to breeding. The first thing you want to do is activate the newborn auto trap. This allows the terminal to auto claim and soul ball gestated and hatched babies automatically, as well as turning breeding on and off for nearby dinos. Now how this breeding works is you will focus on one stat, whether it be health, stamina, melee, oxygen, whatever you want, until you max that single stat out. Then you start again with a fresh male on the next stat until you wind up with 3 max stat level dinos. Then you gender swap them and breed them together, so you'll have one singular dino with all 3 max stats. A full maxed out stat in a dino is 255 points, but if you get it to 255 points, the game will not let you put any levels into that stat. So the level you want to stop at is 254 or 253, depending on if the last number of that stat is odd or even. This server allows for 5 mutation pulses per breeding round, which each mutator boosts the mutation stat 2 points. And with 5 mutators, that would give 10 points towards a stat guaranteed every time, although it doesn't always give it to the stat that you want it to. Don't get irritated, it takes time to breed up OP dinos, but it's well worth it. A good example of this would be my Tech Rexes. When I first started, the points for health was at 54. After the first round of breeding, with hitting all 5 mutators, when I looked through the babies, what I was looking for was a health point of 64 instead of 54. And that is the 10 points that you get from the 5 mutators whenever you pulse them all. The Soul Terminal makes this easy with the advanced search in the center of the screen. All you have to do is simply type in the stat that you're looking for and the number of the point for that stat in brackets, and it will automatically search through all the dinos in the Soul Terminal and show you all the dinos with the required stats that you typed out. Step 3. Getting into the groove of things. Once you have all the males in place, you can turn on breeding to your dinos. Now when mass breeding, it usually gets a little laggy, so you may want to turn off your HUD and wait until the breeding is completely done to check the babies. Once you activate breeding, you will want to watch one of the dinos until the breeding gets to about 50%, and then you will want to go ahead and hit all 5 mutators. Waiting until the breeding is about 50% allows you to get 3 rounds of mutated eggs instead of just 2. Once the mutation pulse wears off, you can go ahead and turn off mating and check the babies. Get the ones with the stat that you want, and if some of them are female, go ahead and gender swap them. Then grow them on top of the pens and repeat the breeding process until you have the maxed out stat that you're going for. Step 4. Finishing your max stat dino. Finally, after breeding all the stats that you want into singular dinos, it's time to breed those dinos together to get one dino with all the stats that you have bred up. Now, I've gotten lucky most of the time and gotten the combined stat in the dinos pretty fast. This does not always happen, like the case with the zombie lightning wyvern. It took me forever to get the stamina added in to the health and melee. I almost gave up on it, but I'm glad I didn't, and you will be too. When breeding these max stat dinos together, you do not need to use a mutation pulse to get these stats to combine. Now, once you get your maxed out dino, what I solely and wholeheartedly recommend doing is growing it up and making a clone of it without putting any points into it, and then putting it into the cloud to stay. Now, what you'll need to do is make some dino trackers and an awesome remote for this. Now, this is just a precaution to make sure that even if you do get wiped by another tribe or something like that, you will always have your maxed out dino, no matter what. As well as an opportunity to clone it and level your dino up in different ways to see which way works best for you for what you're trying to do with this. Now, at this point, I hope that you have a solid foundation to start breeding and making some maxed out dinos to come and try to raid me. Now remember, this is a PvP server and raids do happen often, so it's always good to keep backups. Do not get salty when it happens, because it will happen. I've been wiped, the admin's been wiped, everyone's been wiped from time to time. But as long as you keep those dinos in the upload, you'll always have a copy for them, so you'll never lose your dinos. Now there's one other method of breeding that I want to touch base on. It's called speed breeding. Speed breeding is very similar to the breeding method that I've just went over, with a few slight tweaks. Now this method will get you a maxed out dino in one night if you have time, but this method focuses on one dino instead of multiple dinos at a time. The setup for this will be almost identical to mass breeding, with the exception of the process is going to be a little bit different. You're focusing on a single dino instead of multiple dinos at a time, and you definitely want to use a timer for this one. With this process, you will want to prepare all the male breeders before you start breeding. In this case, I did health, stamina, and damage. When you start breeding, you will start it the same way as the mass breeding by activating the breeding with the soul terminal. Except for this time, you don't have to wait to hit the mutators, but you will want to set a timer for just before the mutation pulse will end when you do hit the mutators. And go ahead and get the next male for the next stat ready. Once the timer goes off, hit a single mutator and it will extend the time of all 5 previous pulses that you set out until the time runs out on the mutator that you just hit. You can do this as many times as you want as long as the time doesn't run out on the mutator that you hit last. Once your first round of breeding is over, you can go ahead and throw up your second male and start them breeding. You will want to get the third male ready to throw out after the breeding round with the second male is done, and go ahead and check for the mutations that you were going for with the first male. Go ahead and pick out the mutation that you want, throw it out, and grow it so it's an adult before the breeding gets back around to that stat. You will keep doing this until all 3 dinos are maxed out, and then breed them together at the very end to get your maxed out dino. This method allows you to focus on all 3 stats at once instead of 1 stat at a time, and because you're constantly hitting one mutator to continue that mutation pulse, it'll save you element in the long run and allow you to finish a single dino faster than it would take to finish a single dino with the mass breeding. Now this server is set up to where you can come in and use some kits and get built up really fast and get straight to PvP. But if you spend just a little bit of time to breed up your dinos, you could rule the server. Do you have what it takes to take down the current server alpha? Only one way to find out, and I'll see you there.